Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Smith. It's Friday, Paraskevia. Today we're looking at the 7th case in Georgian, the vocative. The vocative case, Ts'odebiti, brunva, looks directly at how I address you. And that this is so high frequency that we need to get a hold of it. By comparing last week's class and this week's class, we're going to achieve a fertile understanding as to why we use it, when we use it, and how. So, if you're ready, let's go. Let's begin with my Instagram poster and Ts'odebiti. Ts'odebiti is the vocative case in Georgian. And for those who have never studied a language with a vocative case, we must first address what it is. So I'm going to do it by putting you in a vocative state. Actually, by saying you, I'm halfway there. But with one phrase, excuse me, just one phrase, excuse me, or excuse me, sir, how do you feel? You know that I want to talk to you. You know that I want you to listen to me. You know that I now have your attention. I've asked for your attention and you have mine. And so as frequently as we say in English, excuse me, or maybe we could say, I'm sorry, or we ask a question, do you know? All of these put you in a certain vocative state. And so in Georgian, we can actually illustrate that rather well. If we take the word amkhanagi, which is an old word for comrade, amkhanagi in the nominative becomes amkhanago. And so if I were to simply, I don't need your name, but you are my comrade, and I say, excuse me, comrade, then you can see that I've engaged you without saying the word excuse me, really. Ukatsravad, you don't really need it in Georgian. Use the vocative case to create that bond between the speaker, me, and you. You've got my attention and I've got yours. Of course, the rest then unfolds however I drive it. You know, you might choose to ignore me. It doesn't really matter. But the bottom line is that this shows my interest in getting you into a vocative state of listening. Ivane is his name. In English, we could just simply say, Sarah. That is indeed what we might put an exclamation at the end of the word here. And I suppose for many people, the vocative case can also be really well illustrated by simply putting an exclamation at the end of a word. Now, the vocative case in Georgian, as you could probably imagine, contains a lot of stratified rules that we at this stage don't necessarily need to fully explore. And if it makes you feel any better, sometimes Georgians get themselves a little bit confused too. But this is how we're going to explain it today. Maybe you're wondering who this gentleman is on the Khuti Lari banknote. And this gentleman here looking right at me with those sneaky eyes is Ivane Javakhishvili. Ivane Javakhishvili was born in the Russian Empire as a Georgian, and then became a citizen of the Democratic Republic of Georgia, which was the first breath of independence for Georgian people. And as a thinker and a historian and a linguist, really forced that move into a concrete understanding of Georgian identity. Shortly after, 3 years after the Democratic Republic of Georgia, the Soviet Union took over. And so I think he's looking at me thinking, Amkhanagi? This word is a throwback to the Russian Federation. And I think that I'd like to use this word, and I've chosen this word as a sort of provocation really, as this word is gradually becoming obsolete in the Georgian language. Parents, grandparents, it's part of their consciousness. But for young Georgian people, this word only reflects the old history. As much as this man's fight for Georgian consciousness is still ongoing, then words like this still pervade in the Georgian language. Our job, of course, as students, is to recognize that they exist, but also put them where they belong, in the past. And so I decided to use this word, provoke Ivane slightly, just to make sure that we are moving forward in the way that he would have liked it. Slide 1, let's begin with a nominative case statement. Mr. David is a tall man. And then we're going to convert it into a vocative case. So, Mr. David is a tall man. Batoni Davidi machali katsia. Batoni Davidi machali katsia. Baton is the root of the word. It ends in a consonant. It needs the nominative I ending. Baton, David, Machal, Katz. You know that that A comes from Aris, which is Paraskevia. No, so I don't really need that. I need that as a reference. I'm referring to him. It's a nominative statement. I am not trying to get this person's attention. I'm talking about him. I'm not talking to him. If I'm talking to him, then any of those nouns or the adjective can be used. Take the root, baton, add o. Batono, Mr. Miss Mine, listen to me. Excuse me, sir. That's all I need. By changing the nominative ending to a vocative Ts'odebiti brunva ending, I've achieved my goal, not talking about him, which is a nominative statement, but talking to him. David. Now, the putze, the root of the name, is David. So I just remove the nominative case ending because I'm now talking to you. And logically, even in English, that's why I put an exclamation here. We just say your name and it's automatically in the vocative. I think that's one of the things that we know about English is that we naturally use the vocative sometimes. We just don't know it. Use the name in its putze and that's enough. If you were to add a nominative case ending, suddenly that person becomes referred to and not spoken to, and then it doesn't make any sense at all. Machali becomes machalo, machalo, toli. I put this Y on the end really because in an adjective you describe a person, no, like the chatterbox of the group or the person who's the tallest person in the group, and you have that nickname. And so adjectives can often describe the person in its totality. And then of course, katsi is man. Katso is used a lot. It's used to show that I am talking to you, I want to get your attention. I'm talking to you, I'm not talking about you. And so in all cases, each of these, the title, the given name, the adjective, and the proper noun can be used alone. I'm talking to this man. Miss Mine, listen to me. Miss Men, are you listening to me? And so on. And we know that a vocative case, this does not work as a full statement. It's excessive. It's almost like saying, excuse me, Mr. David, excuse me, Mr. Tall David, excuse me, Mr. David, who's a man. If you were to put a vocative ending on all of them and call it a sentence, it would sound just as weird as what I just said in English. So just remember that they are standalone ways of getting somebody's attention. Slide 2, same thing. Now we're speaking in plural with one observation. So, mas'av leblebi. Mas'av leblebi Nino dalali lamazebi arian. Teachers Nino and Lali are beautiful. They are beautiful. They are beautiful teachers. Now I'm talking about them. So, mas'av lebleb is my root. Nominative ending. Teachers. Nino dalali. Nino ends in a vowel, and so does Lali. What can be confusing is that because the nominative case ending is E, you might be forgiven to think that lal is the root. It's not. A certain number of Georgian names, the root and the name is ending in E. And so when you change it into the vocative case, also you don't need an ending in any of these cases. The vowel ending, not a consonant like mas'av lebleb. The same as lamazi, lamazeb, lamazebi. Okay? So, mas'av leblebi, nino dalali lamazebi arian. I'm talking about them. I'm not talking to them. Here, mas'av leblebo. Mas'av leblebo. I'm talking to respected teachers. Here, of course, it really fits into the concept of Ts'odebiti brunva. That's their title. And so, I'm going to use it with high frequency. Indeed, Georgians frequently, if you have a title, they use it. And if they use it, it's in vocative. It's that simple, it's that frequent. There are the names, Nino Lali, they don't need a vocative ending, the root ends in a vowel. Lamazeb is my root. Lamazebo. Lamazebo. This adjective describes them. In English, you could be like, hey, beautiful ladies. Excuse me, beautiful girls. You know, if that's how you want to address them to get their attention, This is enough in Georgian. Lama zebo, and they will know that you're trying to get their attention. And so the same thing would be matzavleblebo. It's enough. So again, observe that in the nominative, it is a full statement about them. In the vocative, each piece, the title, the name, or the adjective, can be used to begin the conversation with them. Slide 3 illustrates a very important point, that the Georgian language is aware that other languages don't need or use the Ts'odebiti brunva. So foreign titles with names, for example, Mr. Smith, Mr. Dale, Frau Müller, or Senor Gonzalez. It doesn't matter if the word ends in a consonant or not. It's technically in Georgian automatically invocative because these titles evoke the same feeling without the need. These, of course, are names that aren't Georgian and therefore simply quite naturally don't need any ending. Mr. Smith, Mr. Dale, Frau Müller, Senor Gonzalez. Here we can see, as I put here in this dash, technically speaking, they are in the vocative, but you just can't really see it because it's clearly not necessary. Slide 4 illustrates a small technicality with proper nouns, not names and not titles. Here we've got 4 that end in a, e, o, and u. We've got dzma, brother, che, tree, chbo, calf, and turtle, ku. In this case, with a proper noun, add the o. Dzmao, cheo, chbo, ku. I've now put a vocative ending because I am addressing directly such a thing. I'm not talking about it. But in the case of a 2-syllable proper noun, it takes a different ending, a v. So in this case, for example, mama, which means dad or father, becomes mamav in the vocative. Mepe becomes mepev. King in the vocative. Tzkaro becomes tzkarov if you want to refer to it in the vocative. Zutzu, zutzu, zutzuv, breast, part of the body. And it's not necessarily an explanation, but certainly a reason why is that some words like mamao, if you were to use the vocative ending that we would normally apply to the rule, it's actually another thing entirely. Mamao chveno is the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name thing, right? And that's the name of it. Deda, mother. Dedav is the correct 2-syllable proper declination. Dedao is actually a completely different thing. It's a nun, or what we might call a sister. It is a female who works inside a nunnery. And so here, just remember that that might be a good way to remind you that improper use of the o ending with 2-syllable proper nouns will give you a completely different outcome. It can make a different noun entirely. Our final slide, and let's do what we started doing with the poster as our reference, my provocative vocative with amkhanagi. Ivane sa intereso adamiania. Amkhanagi. Ivane sa intereso. This adjective ends in an o. I don't need an ending. Adamiania. Right? This is a statement about Comrade Ivan. Amkhanago. It's enough. I'm saying, excuse me, mate, comrade, listen to me. Mismine. Ivane. Maybe in English we might say Ivan. You know, that's how we might use that vocative with just that name because I know that name. San Tereso, same thing. I don't need an ending, but it's like saying if that was his nickname, sort of Mr. Interesting, you know, I'm using this. I've decided not to use their given name or any title. So there is obviously, with the use of an adjective referring to a person, some kind of context there that needs to be explained or understood. And then Adamiani is a person or an individual. So Adamiano, you know, it's a way to say that that person, you're engaging with that person. Listen to me. I want your attention. You've got mine. That's the last slide of today, but not the last brunva. Next week, we're going to be doing the Vocative brunva. This is known as the adverbial noun declination. So have a nice weekend, and I'll see you then. Bye.